Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we preview early signing day for Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders. It's a recruiting radar conversation coming up. Also, recapping a 50-point win for Mark Adams and the Red Raiders over Jackson State in Houston. And we'll also get to that pesky 2023 Big 12 football schedule, projected to be released mid-December. And by mid-December, apparently they meant February of next year. We'll explain up ahead on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Glad to see you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks for making us your first listen each weekday. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege today. Terms and conditions apply. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan, and we will begin today's conversation with thoughts from the Third Coast as Mark Adams and the Red Raiders get a win on a neutral site, unique environment over Jackson State, 102-52 in the HBCU coaches versus racism, round ball, hardwood, above the rim, hoops classic. We hate racism so much, we said we're beating Jackson State by 50, and we're going to look good doing it. Chris, here's what we asked for, I think. Kind of a feel-good day with some style points included for Tech in the win.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's there's various reasons why, but I mean, ultimately, look, man, you needed to play well at some point. I think you clearly did that. Jackson State has a lot to do with that. But you know, there's a couple of storylines in this game that I thought, you know, really are the takeaways for me, and that was, I mean, look at what the bench provided you in this game. You had 56 points from players that didn't start for you in this game. And we're, you know, all we can go off of is, look, they played against Jackson State. Look, Jackson State's 1-10 now. Their net ranking is woeful. They've played a lot of really good teams very close, and that is all true. They have not played a home game. I mean, that's kind of who Jackson State is right now. No home games. They're 1-10. They played 2 neutral site games and then 9 road games. Okay, we're talking Indiana, Michigan, Mississippi State, SMU, TCU, Abilene Christian, Akron, Toledo. I mean, they've been all over the place, and they're coached by Mo Williams, a former NBA champion for the Cavaliers back in about 5 to 6 years ago. But they've been scrappy. The only game they've just been blown out in was at Indiana when they played in Bloomington, and they got run out of the building there. But everything else was very contested, you know, right around double digits, and they led a lot of these games, you know, midway through the second half, and were very competitive. They just didn't have enough to overcome. But Texas Tech just showed up, and you know, I was expecting a fairly spicy game, and you just, you know, you blew the doors off. You shot it the best you'd probably shot it all year. You played as good of a defense as, and again, Jackson State had a lot to do with this, but they're not my problem. The Red Raiders are, and I thought it was a kind of a feel-good day for sure, and it was desperately needed.
Yeah, and I didn't mind some of the guys that were involved and feeling good about seeing shots fall. It was atypical to see what you got from the reserves, and I think even among the reserves was atypical to see guys like Williams there making the impact that he was statistically. And I ain't mad at it, Chris, whether it's Fisher, Williams, Allen, or back to guys like Washington. Seeing shots fall, making great plays for your team does the same thing for any player, regardless of opponent or circumstance, I think. You know what it's like to see one go through the net if maybe they haven't been going through all that often. And I know that you rarely, if ever, went into a shooting slump. So I don't know if you know what it's like to get back out of that slump, but it's quite the feeling. So I'm glad that really all around some of those guys that I really didn't anticipate talking about this way got to have that kind of day.
Yeah, because I think, between DeMaurian Williams and Kerwin Walton, they combined for 7 threes in this game. You made 13 as a team, but those two guys, if they can give you some semblance of that and be somewhat consistent with it, it just changes the dynamic of your team. If you can, get some 3-point punch off the bench, just scoring punch in general. But they had neither had really shown that to be consistent up until the game versus Jackson State. And now the challenge is, okay, can they continue to do this? It was like that, Lamar Washington had that big game, a few weeks ago. And when he gets the free throw line against Nichols, and you're thinking, okay, now can you build off of this? And now, so that's the hard part. But yeah, I mean, I just think, and then KJ Allen, he's the tricky one because he had a great first half. He was, I think, 5 for his first 5 from the field. He was getting steals, and he had a couple of highlight dunks and things like that.
Yep.
When Bacho comes back, one of two things happens. Either KJ Allen has now maybe taken some of Robert Jennings' minutes, okay? Or, KJ Allen kind of goes back to the end of the line once Bacho comes back, and they still give a lot of those minutes to Robert Jennings. You see what I'm saying? So,
and I think that's a gambling man's pick there, probably.
Okay.
Because Chris, I just think it goes back to what you just mentioned before that. You've got to string these things together.
Yeah.
And so with guys like Allen, just specifically because we're talking about him, we're going to need to see more, I think, before you're like, all right, well, he's taking a dude that you've had in the starting lineups minutes as a reserve, as Jennings would shift back and Bacho enters the fray. But I'd love to see anybody string those things together because you need it. You need it all, don't you? So whoever wants it, come get it.
Yeah, and that's the, obviously when Bacho, goes down, and Robert Jennings and KJ Allen, there's more minutes for both of those guys, and I think they both want to play more, but this was kind of been their time to kind of show the staff, hey, this is why you should be playing more. KJ Allen's just the tricky one just because he's just a tweener, a bit of an undersized big, and in the Big 12, when you're going against a lot of length in the post and on the wing, it's hard to justify or find him minutes. He was able to overwhelm Jackson State with some athleticism and things like that, but it's harder to do in the Big 12 conference. So, but either way, it was a good weekend for the Red Raiders, and it was needed. And because here's the tricky thing, man. Jackson State, like their net ranking is like around 330 in the country. You play Houston Christian this week, right before you send the guys off for Christmas. Theirs is 361 out of 363. So these games aren't doing you a lot of good from the data and resume standpoint. You simply just have to win them and take them for what they are and get your guys' confidence, improve. The win goes without saying, but you've got to try to use it. And South Carolina State, who's on the other side of Christmas, they're the same. Their net ranking is right around what Jackson State's is. So you really have no opportunity to improve your resume before conference play starts. So you just have to take these at face value and just try to work guys together, get some confidence going, and all that stuff, because by just playing these games, it's killing your resume. Yeah, that's just the reality of it.
Just taking the warm-ups off, you're getting deducted.
Hey, that's because on the floor. I mean, like, here's the tricky thing. You are better off in some ways going to play a high-profile team at some neutral site and getting run off the floor. That looks better, as far as the numbers go and the data goes, than
the algorithm.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just because they're going to reward you for playing people, And here's the other thing that's tricky. Creighton, remember how good Creighton was?
Yeah.
They've lost 6 in a row.
Right. What have they done?
Yeah. I mean, you're like, man, this team's Final Four good. I think man, there's no shame in that. They can't. The wheels have fallen off. So,
hey, you know what though? I'm already sloughing this off because it's almost over. You'll earn everything you want if you're getting wins in the Big 12 conference, and the time is almost – this has been a tricky time. I mean, it's no margin for error all the way along. You're getting no credit for any wins. You're sliced and diced if you trip up anywhere or just look, say, a little funky in a couple of wins. So we've all been ready for this stretch to be over. There's no doubt about that. And thank God we're closer to the end than the beginning. Every opportunity you want before you as far as the metrics and rankings, certainly going to be there in the Big 12 Conference if you can find the wins that hopefully you can. But so far, so good as far as no margin for error time. Continue to get the wins and then get on to really chopping wood time as you get into America's best basketball conference. All right, we're switching gears. Coming up ahead, a hard left. Scared. You zigged when you thought I was going to zag, or I zagged when you thought I was going to zig. Who am I? I'm the Big 12 Conference. By middle of December schedule release, they actually meant when? Maybe February next year. We'll get into some of the details that have led to this revelation, and we're going to get back to football beyond as we're back locally talking Texas Tech. Chances to sign names on dotted lines is coming up this week. So we're hitting the radar with Chris Level when it comes to early signing day opportunity. It's all up ahead on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn. Joey McGuire is putting his team together for 2023. You're putting your business's team together for 2023 as well, and you want to find just the right candidates that fit your needs. Not wasting any time dealing with anybody that's not going to meet your business's standard, and that's where LinkedIn really shines through. You can create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs right now to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people, cutting right through the fat, getting to those candidates that fit what you're looking for. It's why small businesses are rating LinkedIn Jobs #1 and delivering quality hires versus leading competitors, helping you find those folks you want to talk to faster. And that's why nearly 40 million job seekers are visiting LinkedIn to connect with you, the employer, every week. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege today. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free with LinkedIn Jobs. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. For your second listen, hope you'll check out Locked On Sports today on the Locked On Podcast Network, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Let's switch gears and step away from hoops. We were just discussing the 102-52 win for Mark Adams and the gang over Jackson State. From Houston, we'll get the Tech football up ahead as early signing day for Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders is on the horizon. We'll talk about some of what's going down here on the trail. But first, Chris, this little ditty from the Big 12 Conference over the weekend. You and I kicked off roughly similar this time last week, talking about anticipating finally a release of the 2023 Big 12 football schedule. There's been much anticipation, great mystery as to how this was going down as streams collide, exiting, entering, as you talk membership and who's going to play who in a divisionless format. There are a whole lot of boxes to be checked. We've seen kind of bubble up over the last week, more reporting on the possibility that where there is a will, there is a way for Texas and Oklahoma to exit the Big 12, enter the SEC earlier. I think, at least personally, that's always been my thought as to what was going to play out to some degree. And I think for the most part, that's why we then got this from the Big 12. As we hit the weekend, we realized, hey, no 2023 football schedule has been released, contrary to projections of mid-December release points. This reporting indicating heading into the weekend that the Big 12 Conference, while targeting last week for their release, is now suggesting that they're going to be releasing February 1 or in the vicinity of February 1, 2023. 2023. Chris, I know these dots all connect somehow, but I'm curious how you see them connecting and now leading to, a little over a month, I guess, that we'll be still waiting for this announcement.
Yeah, I one of the things is you didn't mention is really the biggest reason why, in my opinion, and that's that the playoff is expanding. Okay, and that with that news, I think it expedites the departure of Oklahoma and Texas because if maybe they stay, they feel like they have a better chance to get into to the playoff as it currently stood. But with an expanded playoff, really it doesn't matter what league you're in, and when you're going to go to 12 teams. And I think that is a heavy factor. And I think that look, they had been talking about trying to get out early all along, right? And I just think there's a lot of financial ramifications. And as Brett Yormark has stated, look, this has to make sense for all involved, including the league. Well, I think once the playoff expands, I think that got kicked into high gear. And then I think they start looking at different scenarios because everybody needs to know here something pretty quick. SEC needs to know. The Big 12 needs to know. The TV partners need to know because you start building and planning and trying to set up scheduling models. Not just for this year, but off into the distance on home and homes. I mean, all pods and divisions. I mean, all the things. and now it appears that everything we kind of maybe knew about the Big 12 schedule as it relates to Texas Tech could all be off the table. I mean, they could rework the whole thing.
That's true.
I think that because I never had heard this before, but the report by Dennis Dodd of CBS, I believe. I sent this to you when I saw it because it's, they part of Oklahoma and Texas being allowed to leave early, maybe for reduced fees or whatever is okay. You got to come back and play at some Big 12 schools and non-conference games. You have to, I don't know how many, I don't know at what level that makes it right. I don't know the balance of cost versus going to play game. I don't know any of that, but it just, to me, it sounded like everything was being discussed and on the table to allow them to depart early. So that's my full expectation, is that you're going to have 1 year of a 14-team league, and then it'll drop back down to 12 minus Oklahoma and Texas for 2025. Or 24, I guess it would be.
I remember when the news began to be leaked from SEC media days. I was live on the air on local radio, chained to the desk where they threw peanuts at me daily like an animal. And I said at that time, Chris, this is not going to play out as paper would indicate to you now. There's no way, and I never knew what it would look like as far as an early exit date, but I just feel like there's far too many folks who want to find a way, whatever that looks like, even before the expanded college football playoff and all these things, to hasten the resolution either way. Because while I know that these are blue bloods we're talking about and everybody would like that final, I guess, cash in with them possibly on their home schedule, at the end of the day, is the energy expended worth the return? Well, if you're tabulating that up, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I think you would come at least naturally. I know I would in some situations, as you get closer to these things and it becomes so complicated and time is so pressing. I really feel like more people loosen up to a degree where maybe previously you were staunchly against any budging or maneuvering. But eventually, as you get closer to it, you're thinking, I don't know, maybe we could actually work this out. And I don't know if it was COVID that revealed it or COVID that created it, but I now have some expectation now that people can just figure things out in a shorter amount of time, I guess, than I thought previously. And a lot of that was set in just literally watching sports scheduling happen, particularly in college sports, right? We saw so much take place on the fly during that time period. I know it was very unique, but I've just always felt like there had to be a path to some early exit. I'm a little confused on the playoff incentive that you were touching on there at the beginning, however, because unless I'm misunderstanding what you're saying, and tell me if I am, but I'm just thinking about Texas and Oklahoma, particularly Texas. You stink in the Big 12. You don't do anything in the Big 12 conference. And now all of a sudden with an expanded playoff, that hastens your exit, whereas in my mind, you've got an easier path. to that with 1 year in the Big 12 potentially to beat up on, just us peons that you're leaving in your
Well, I think
context.
like there's a couple of things. One you touched on is I think as time has gone along, one you now have a new media rights deal off into the distance, whereas before you had no new TV contract. So you're on much more stable ground now going forward. Now that you're under contract against or with ESPN and Fox, way off into the distance now. Whereas before, when all this stuff was happening, man, you're just kind of scrambling, fighting for your life a little bit. You feel a little vulnerable. You're like, we're holding on and going to get every dime out of these people that we possibly can. But now that you've got a new deal and put pen to paper there, and you've added new members and all those things, you're in a much different place. I guess my point is that there's not, I think it's just the sheer number of teams in both cases, in that if you're in a 10-team league, if you win that league, odds are you have a pretty good chance of getting to a 4-team playoff. Okay. Whereas now that the playoff is expanded to 12, or it will, what I believe will be the first year when they are in the SEC, talking about Texas and Oklahoma, you don't have to win a league. So it doesn't necessarily matter what league you're in.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
I think there's a component there. I'm not saying that's the reason that they maybe, but it just makes sense now that now that some of that is in place, that
and I'm just laughing thinking of those odds, like OU and UT are like, yeah, let's go to the big or SEC because we'll definitely finish in the top 4.
Yeah, not necessarily. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah, try it. Go try it.
Yeah, it's just
that's 2024, right, Chris? Expanded playoff kickoff is 2024, and on paper, that would be the last year for Texas and Oklahoma to be in the Big 12, I think, right? If everything just played out.
Well, if nothing changes, but what I'm saying to you is, I think you're going to get this next football schedule in 2023. So next fall, less than a year from now,
right.
That's the last year you're going to get Texas and Oklahoma in your league. Yeah. So that 24 season, whenever the playoffs are expanded,
yes,
I believe they're playing in the SEC at that point, and you're operating as a 12-team league unless you've added to it between now and then. That's what I believe will be the case.
Why would that not be great news for every Big 12 team? Because I think there are going to be plenty of years where the Big 12 is a 2-bid league. And in an expanded 12-team format, hey, Texas and Oklahoma want to leave? And then we've got at least 1 bid, and depending on the year, which if you look at metrics this year, would they have been a 2-bid league? Yes. Yeah, we'd celebrate that in Lubbock, Texas. Get these $130 million athletics departments. No, you ain't quite there, but get them out of here. And yeah, isn't that good news in 2024 for remaining Big 12 members theoretically, competitively?
Yeah, and this is where it depends. Yeah, competitively, yes. I think where everybody comes at it from is that, look, because you have, okay, is this best for revenue? Is this best for, man, I don't want to host Central Florida every year. I really kind of liked it when the Longhorns came to my city. It felt like a beefier conference schedule and something I can get behind and get. It's all those dynamics that I think that you can debate whether it's good or bad. I don't pretend to know the finances, but they are heavily in play as one of the underlying factors of what the Big 12 administration and commissioner and all that feel about things. So that's why I say, because the athletic directors and the school presidents, they're basically telling Yormark, kind of, hey, here's kind of what we're comfortable with. Here's what we're not comfortable with. And so he knows the finances at play and kind of what happens if this happens and this happens. And if we let them do this, we get this less or this much more, whatever. Yeah. So that is just the reality of it, because everybody's got budgets to put together, and you've got payroll to meet. You've got a lot of things going on. And so you can't just because we're talking, originally if it was, I think it was like, what was it? 80 million per year per school, if they bail out. So we're talking $160 million, that, I think I remember that, or maybe it was 40 million per school. Anyway, it's either 80 or 160, one of the two. Either way, it's a big, big number. And it's a number that these schools were uncomfortable paying. And I think that it's money that the Big 12 had them dead to rights on for the most part. So I'm kind of curious to see contracts are made to be broken. And this all comes down to a negotiation. Like, okay, if we let you do this, this is what you're going to do. So I'm interested to see if there is an early exit, what does that come with? Because there will be a big PR battle there, like who won the negotiation there. I mean, that'll be kind of how that plays out. But,
I guess, but we all know the truth. The Big 12 is losing 2 blue bloods. Texas, money ain't nothing but a thing. They're more well-financed than the kingdom of God, and PR, schmear. When you got as much money as they do, you buy your own PR. So I don't even think they care. Like Oklahoma, they still finance their athletics department trading furs and bead necklaces or something. I really don't know what's going on so much in Norman, but I feel like none of that matters to the University of Texas, and they'll get on with what they got going on financially. Competitively, back to what I alluded to a moment ago, I probably would be a fool to sit here and act like, well, you're just going to get the same rep for the same records nationally as a Big 12 member as you did this year in years when Texas and Oklahoma are not taking those L's or are not on the schedule. Because that's not going to be viewed the same way. So your odds of being a 2-bid league, I'm sure, do go down, right or wrong, whether it's actually in touch with reality or not. We're still dealing with media in large part at the end of the day. So probably be stupid to just act like that's going to remain the same as well. But very, very interesting wheels turning. And yeah, by the time we get the schedule, you're sitting there just months away from launching the experience, it sounds like. So looking forward to February.
And people don't realize that, this is going to put some of these institutions a bit behind because, people don't think about things like the academic calendars in some cases are put in place at schools based on football weekends, and they need to know when home dates are, because typically you've gotten this in late November, early December, and you can start putting your academic calendar together, for family weekend, parents weekend, homecoming, and all this stuff, because it's not just the football game that goes on. There's so many things that, and every school operates the same way, these universities, and you're trying to make sure staff is in place and all that stuff. And you're right. It's like we saw with COVID, everybody pivot, but now that everybody is allowed to come and show up and attendance and all that, there's a lot of factors at play. So it's going to put some of these schools, and I'd be willing to bet it wouldn't surprise me at all, because of what I'm explaining to you, if the Big 12 has said to these schools, hey, look, we can't tell you who yet, but these are your home dates. You'll host home games on these weekends. If they get that ahead of time, that wouldn't surprise me even a little bit, just because of how much planning goes into some of this stuff.
Lubbock area hotels have to know when to gouge.
Bingo.
How will they know when to gouge? Actually, I think they just book it all out like the entire fall. But either way, people need to know, as in us people, Locked On Texas Tech, fam damly. We need to know, but we're going to be waiting apparently until February, when a little bald baby cherub like Brett Yormark will come up and shoot us in the butt with a scheduling arrow, I suppose, to wish us a happy Valentine's Day. So we're looking forward to that. Coming up dead ahead, we're looking ahead to early signing day. Joey McGuire and company adding to that Red Raider fam family, and pretty excited about what's being alluded to along the lines of speed, what's being alluded to along the lines of the trenches. Those are pretty important areas, right? We're getting to that and more as we turn now to an early signing day radar coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, today's episode brought to you by BetOnline, your headquarters for live betting, stats and scores, more lines, props, odds than ever before. Shout out to the unintentional rhyme master. You can find all the latest news on this week's games, as well as analysis on the wide, sometimes Western world of sports, well beyond just the gridiron or the hardwood. Golf, combat sports, esports. You hit a lick on a little esports, you're going to feel pretty smart heading into the weekend. Maybe try it out. or maybe don't. Don't take my advice because I know nothing about esports. That's why you need to head, however, to find out something about esports to BetOnline. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about what the trends are looking like this week with BetOnline, where the game starts. Got it. It's Locked On Texas Tech from the other side out yonder, west of the 100th Meridian, where it's really going down. Good to see you again from the great state on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube if you have not so far, so you never miss an episode. And with the holidays coming up, New Year's, bowl game in the midst, it's about to get funky. So the scheduling get a little wild. Want to make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode, like the bonus episode that came at you hot and heavy Friday afternoon following the return that was never a departure of Fardaz Amack, as an example. Chris, we didn't spend time earlier with you on this. You can check out the episode with Kirkley Knowles of Level 13 Agency on Locked On Texas Tech if you missed it anywhere on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. But you were texting me. As you were, I don't know if you were quite on the plane yet or looking at the plane, walking to the plane, but you're saying Maple is back if he ever left. I mean, what a wild turn of events and a wild finish to a wild week for Tech fans.
Yeah, I mean, he was on the flight, and I'm like, well, this is interesting because I'm like, okay, was there ever any news here? Just weird news or non-news, or I'm not real sure. And that's what you're going to get in this portal NIL era, because like if you want to understand like how things have changed, it's now becoming a thing whenever current players on a current team just announce that they're coming back, whether they
right. I've noticed this.
Yeah, that's now becoming an announcement. Whether they had any intention of leaving or whether it's like, okay, it's almost like, okay, I'm not going to either graduate or I'm not going to get into the portal. But hey, man, I just wanted you to know, even though I'm a sophomore, I don't even know if I have other options to go elsewhere. I want everybody to know I am coming back. But that's kind of becoming like, I don't know if I want to call it standard, but that's becoming
you're so right,
a way of the way it's gonna happen here. It's been fairly bizarre.
You're giving me visions of Costanza on the plane with Big Maple looking over. Is that Maple over there? Am I crazy or didn't you quit?
Yeah.
It was a wild turn of events, but we had it all covered here on Locked On Texas Tech, and that's why you got to get subscribed on YouTube if you are not already, so you never miss a bonus emergency alert episode. All right, let's get to a conversation, Chris, where the waters are calm, something steady and reliable, where a commitment means something. A man never goes back on his word. Oh, wait. Sorry, I was confused with another topic. We're talking college football recruiting instead. Early signing day is almost upon us. It's coming up on Wednesday, and I'm turning to you for the details, Chris, but one big picture perspective I think I have is that I'm very excited to have Joey McGuire and his staff on the trail, and I think they may have actually a little bit of wind in their sails, some momentum to propel them as far as the sales pitch is concerned.
Yeah, so this is one other thing that has changed in recent years is this early signing period, and it's really been pushed to be the main signing period as Joey and most schools put the bulk of their recruiting class together this time of year. It's not as if anything else is going on this time of year. Because it's still, my brain hasn't gotten used to it because it felt like in early February. It just kind of was nestled in there. It meant kind of a somewhat active January. Everything had kind of calmed down. But now you've got holidays and you've got bowl game preparation. You've got visits going on in December. You've got guys on your current team entering the portal and you're hosting portal visitors and all that stuff. But, yeah, you'll expect at some point this week to sign somewhere between 20 to 25 high school prospects that I think they feel really good about. I mean, I think that they have talked about this being one of, if not the fastest class in Texas Tech history. I don't know how you judge that, but Joey kind of talked about verified track times. And look, they knew. I mean, you watched Texas Tech play. We talked about it most of the season. It's not a secret. You're way too slow in way too many spots when you compare yourself to the upper echelon of the Big 12. And this is something that they are trying to fix and fix desperately. So we'll see kind of what it looks like this week, because and I'm always asked at this time of year, hey, should we expect any surprises? Well, it's possible. It works both ways. You could end up with somebody that you didn't have any idea about, but you could also lose a guy that bails out of your recruiting class that you had planned on too. So and so I caution everybody. The reality is when you're gonna, the bulk of your signees are going to be high school prospects here. Just remember, this past year, only really Joseph Adedire kind of factored in to your team as a true freshman. So that's the reality of kind of, it's fun to get excited and you want good players, and they certainly on paper are going to look to add a huge group of those and ones that a lot of schools want and all that stuff. It's just that it takes a year or three, depending on who the prospect is and the position and all those things on before they'll, factor in, I guess, immediately.
Chris, I remember on staffs gone by, guys really standing out, this time of year as far as assistants, guys like, Tommy Maynard,
Yes.
among some others. And I don't know that everybody deserves the mention like I think Coach Maynard might, but releasing Prunties and things like this. Who among the staff like really shines or really has the juice on the recruiting trail? Because I think I have some guesses, but I'm curious from your point of view, maybe who really excels in that area.
I may give you an answer that you're not necessarily expecting, in that the structure of this staff and really the structures have changed much over the years of the way kind of it works. But really, I mean, who if I can say it right, deserves the bulk of the credit is really a guy like James Blanchard. And he's a non-assistant coach. I mean, his job is simply to identify, sort through, vet different prospects, and then say, because the way it kind of works with Joey's staff, it's Coach Blanchard that really says, hey, OC, hey, DC, we just offered this D lineman, or we just offered this running back or this offensive lineman. It's not used to, like, the coordinator, we're kind of like, yeah, I like him, I don't like him, and then if you do like him, it's like, okay, let's offer him and all that stuff. But now you've got James Blanchard and his staff kind of go to, and it's not always that way. I mean, yes, Zach Kittley and Tim DeRuiter have some say-so. Joey McGuire certainly has some say-so, but in large in part, it's James Blanchard that identifies and says, this is who we want, and this is why. This is he runs this fast in the hurdles. He runs this fast in the 200. He can dunk a basketball. His arm length at this particular camp is this. He measured at, I mean, all of these different things that they are looking at. And there's a staff of Coach Blanchard and I guess 4 to 5 others. This is really all they do is monitor the portal and recruiting. And so the way this thing is structured, I think James Blanchard deserves to be mentioned in this space.
I'm glad you mentioned James Blanchard, because I think we had a question not too long ago in the YouTube comments on a show about James Blanchard, because he's the recently extended James Blanchard. And I saw a lot of excitement about that as far as his future on Coach McGuire's staff and with Texas Tech. And we had someone kind of asking to let them in on why the excitement. I think because they didn't understand necessarily the position or maybe the way he's thought of in those circles.
Well, I mean, has any other staff member been extended?
Great point, man. Great point.
And it was Joey that had kind of announced it, and it was excited about it. And if you remember, I think whenever Joey took this job and he showed up for the press conference, I mean, all these different things, I mean, James Blanchard was really one of the only people on the plane with him. And that should tell you a lot. I think that.
Well, and did it also factor in, Chris, the rule to Lincoln? Was that anything? Matt rule to Lincoln? Because wasn't Blanchard a Baylor guy also?
He was, but I think he was really tied to Joey. I think this
Okay.
is Joey being very proactive and trying to get out in front of any sort of possible, problem. And it's not even that there was. It's just like, hey man, you're doing a really good job. Let's because. And if you're Tech's administration, you're probably talking to Joey about a contract extension for himself as well, or at least putting another year on his current deal or something like that, based on how this first year has gone. But yeah, I think this is a unique setup here. I don't think it's like this. Everybody's got their own, and these staffs are a little more bloated than they used to be because you've got all of these analysts, you've got recruiting personnel, and you have to throw resources at it because it really never stops, especially with the portal. It can be maddening at times, and if you're a coach, you simply don't have time to mess with it all the time. You've got so many other things you're trying to juggle, and you've got to have people that's what their sole purpose is, and that's the way Texas Tech is. And so I think, again, James Blanchard will be really excited about the news, just like Joey McGuire this week, depending on what you sign.
Yeah, I'm trusting the perspective of the guys who are either employing him or choosing to have him on their staff or know what he does for that program. Because while we may be unfamiliar with that position, there was no questioning the fact that Joey McGuire seemed very excited. And seeing some others in those circles speak of Blanchard in the way that they did as far as the further commitment from Texas Tech to him and him to Texas Tech was good to see as a fan. And it'll be sometimes this time of year when we see some of those fruits really begin to show up. So excited about what we'll find out on early signing day. And I'm sure there will be some surprises. Chris, have you ever just told anybody definitively, hey, Chris, are there any surprises coming up? No, won't be one. There will not be one unexpected thing happen. Has there ever been a year where you went with that answer?
I have not. No. I mean, there's been plenty of years where you're like, okay, it should be business as usual. But even then, if you say that, you're just not real sure.
You're asking for it if you say that.
Yeah, no doubt. Because, and again, it works both ways. You can get, some people get bad surprises too, and those are never fun.
That's exactly right. Hoping we avoid all of those and only the good kind coming up this week on early signing day. All right, be right back here on Locked On Texas Tech because we'll have that covered. We're also getting ready for more Red Raider hoops as we get the rest of this out of the way and then get on to conference play here very soon on the other side of Christmas. And we hope you're going to have a merry one at some point, but that's not our final Merry Christmas of the week. We still got plenty more to go. So subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you miss nothing. Chris, enjoyed the time. Glad you made it back from Houston, man. And thanks for the insight as always.
The Dirty Third. Yes, sir. Going back in a couple of weeks for some football, but enjoyed my time there. Hopefully I'll enjoy my second trip there, but keep hope alive, Coach Cowan, and we'll see you down the road. I guess that be maybe tomorrow.
That's right. We're back at it on the other side right here on Locked On Texas Tech. Thanks for making us your first listen and make Locked On Sports Today your second listen on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. For Chris, I'm Casey. We'll see you next time around on Locked On Texas Tech.